Welcome to this space, this sanctuary of peace, where we come not only to create our best selves, but also to do the work of creating a beloved community. We come together today as individuals, much like individual pieces of glass or pottery. There are different shapes, sizes, and colors, all of which are broken pieces with imperfect, jagged edges, but always beautiful. While our pieces may not always fit neatly together, it is within this sanctuary, guided by our highest values, that we gather together to create a beautiful mosaic. May the brokenness and beauty you find in one another create peace in this space and fill our hearts with love as we create worship together. So come now, let us worship together.
Our chalice lighting is by Paul Stefan Daudenhoff. Joy and grief, health and sickness, light and darkness, peace and anger, life and death, wholeness and brokenness. We each bring all of these here to this sanctuary of unity in diversity. For this 1 hour of this one day, and pour them out, commingling the oil of our lives, to become the flame of this chalice, the symbol of our living faith.
I'd like to share this spoken meditation with you all by Richard Gilbert, and it's called Life is Always Unfinished Business. And let's be in a spirit of meditation. In the midst of the whirling day, in the hectic rush to be doing, in the frantic pace of life, pause here for a moment. Catch your breath. Relax your body. Loosen your grip on life. Consider that our lives are always unfinished business. Imagine that the picture of our being is never complete. Allow your life to be a work in progress. Do not hurry to mold the masterpiece. Do not rush to finish the picture. Do not be impatient to complete the drawing. From beckoning birth to dawning death, we are in process. And always there is more to be done. Do not let the incompleteness weigh on your spirit. Do not despair that imperfection marks your every day. Do not fear that we are still in the making. Let us instead be grateful that the world is still to be created. Let us give thanks that we can be more than we are. Let us celebrate the power of the incomplete, for life is always unfinished business.
And now a reading by Rachael Naomi Remen. Serving makes us aware of our wholeness and its power. The wholeness in us serves the wholeness in others and the wholeness in life. The wholeness in you is the same as the wholeness in me. Service is a relationship between equals. Our service strengthens us as well as others. Fixing and helping are draining, and over time we may burn out, but service is renewing. When we serve, our work itself will renew us. In helping, we may find a sense of satisfaction. In serving, we find a sense of gratitude.
I think it was about 2 years ago now, a friend of mine called me which wasn't that unusual, but we hadn't talked in a while. We had a nice long chat, and we can both really talk, so we were probably on the phone for about an hour, and so we finally ended the conversation. We were all caught up, and I made myself some dinner, and had just finished cleaning up, and I saw she was calling again. I thought, well, that's weird. I wonder why she'd be calling me again. So my friend, I'll call her Callie, she lives in this really cute little 18th century stone cottage out in the country on several acres, about 10 miles away from me. And so she was calling to say that she was out there doing some weeding, and she had tripped over a low stone wall and fallen. And her ankle was hurting really bad, and she couldn't get up, and could I come? I said, well, of course, so I jumped in the car, and I drove right over there, and by the time I got there, a neighbor had shown up, and I guess she had called this neighbor. The neighbor had called an ambulance, so pretty soon my friend Callie was on the way to the hospital, and I met her there. I ended up spending the night with her in the hospital. I even held her foot in place. The orthopedist gave me instructions while he set the 2 leg bones. Yeah, they were both broken. So my friend Callie has lots of friends, and which is something that's really great when you're in a time of need, as she now was. So her friends got together, and with her agreement, we set up a schedule. So one of us would be on call for each day of the week. And there were a lot of things that she just couldn't do on her own, so she really needed a lot of help. And Monday was my day, and Callie was complaining about having trouble with her crutches. Well, I remembered using crutches myself, and it was about 15 years ago, but I sort of vaguely remembered how to adjust crutches. I really wanted to help Callie, though. So I kind of took over, and I adjusted the crutches to the way that I thought was going to work better for her. And she tried them out, and they seemed okay. The next week, I was back, and I asked her, how are the crutches working out? And she said, well, I didn't want to tell you, but I fell. And then when I went to the physical therapist and asked her about the crutches, she said they had been adjusted incorrectly. The weight is supposed to be on the hands and not on the armpits, as you had said. Oh, well, of course I felt terrible. And I apologized profusely. And for several days after that, I reflected on my behavior. I was reminded of Rachael Naomi Remen's essay called Helping, Fixing, or Serving? Remen is a rabbi and a physician, and she says, helping, fixing, and serving represent 3 different ways of seeing life. When you help, you see life as weak. When you fix, you see life as broken. When you serve, you see life as whole. Fixing and helping may be the work of the ego, and service the work of the soul. Now, there's nothing wrong with helping someone, of course. Remen is speaking about a well-meaning but misguided way of helping. Helping where we see someone as weak or incapable and in need of our rescuing. I have to admit, I guess I was seeing my friend as weak and incapable. And I guess my ego was at work, wanting to rescue her. And I just want to remind us that our egos aren't bad. They have a purpose, and they try to ensure our well-being, but they do go overboard sometimes. In my case, my ego wanted Callie to see me as competent and capable, as a hero. And maybe I even thought that if I was helpful enough, Callie would come to see me as more than just one of her many friends. And I genuinely wanted to be of service to Callie. Most of us want to be helpful in a way that truly serves someone's needs. But how can we discern when and how to help in a way that truly serves another's needs rather than our own needs? Well, before springing into action, we can turn inward. With some honest reflection, we can check our motivations. Are we perhaps seeking something for ourselves? Are we trying to fill a void inside of us? Some kind of insecurity? Mark Nepo speaks of his own struggle to untangle these motivations. Though it never lasts, he says, in the moment of answering someone's need, we feel loved. While sometimes we've answered a true need, if we're coming from a place of feeling less than whole, we may end up anticipating needs that aren't really there, or worse, offering help that harms instead. The role of the rescuer can be a hard one to resist. Hard to resist because we can become dependent on helping others to get that shot of feeling worthy. It can be very much like an addiction, says Nepo. Rather than reacting to our need for that shot of worthiness, it's important to instead find out what the other person truly needs, and not what we imagine they need. Mark Nepo tells this cute little story about a turtle who got halfway across the road when she decided that she wanted to go back home. But before she could turn around, some helpful person came along, picked her up, took her to the other side of the road, the far side, and gently deposited her there, which was not where she wanted to be. If you've ever been on the receiving end of someone's well-intentioned but incorrect assumptions about what you need, you'll know how this feels. There was a taciturn farmer whose sister was dying, and he made sure that family members did not leave his sister alone for one moment. His sister finally told him, "Stop it, this is not what I want." Well, it turns out it was what he wanted when he imagined himself dying. Okay? Because we're not all the same. So this is a good lesson for us when we find out that someone we care about is ill or injured and they're at home or in the hospital. We need to be careful not to assume that what we would want, lots of visitors, phone calls, flowers, cards, balloons, or no visitors and no fuss. So we need to be careful not to assume that what we would want is what they would want. We need to ask. And we know that people may not always know what they want in these kinds of situations, but we can at least offer some options. We also need to be sensitive to the fact that when someone's agency has been reduced, it may be all the more important to allow them to exercise what control they still have over their own lives. Even with the best of intentions, it can still be difficult to find the line between offering the help that it seems clear to us that they need and allowing them to exercise their own agency and to steer their own ship. The danger in helping, says Remen, is that we may inadvertently take away from people more than we could ever give them. We may diminish their sense of worth, integrity, or even wholeness. And we need to know our limitations. If we can't help or aren't sure how to help, it's better to find someone who can than to potentially harm them, note to self, or harm ourselves. Because the rescuing and fixing kinds of help are really focused on ourselves, we may miss the opportunity to create a closer connection with another person, a heart-to-heart connection. We may be well-meaning, but rescuing and fixing are born from our own need for self-affirmation or to relieve our own anxieties. Because it's hard to see someone suffering. We want to do something to make it better, and that's a very strong and natural urge. But that makes it about us. Serving, on the other hand, comes from a place of seeing ourselves and others as whole, and seeing life as whole. In serving, we're conscious and aware of ourselves and these anxieties and urges, and we're able to set aside our own needs. Relieving our anxiety, our need to be needed, or our need for control, all those things that bubble up when someone else is in pain. We can remind ourselves that the most respectful way of being in service to another person is to honor them in their wholeness. Service is a relationship that strengthens others and strengthens us. And when someone asks for help and we respond from a place of offering service, we're fully present to them and focused on their needs. Their reaching out and our responding then creates a sacred connection. It draws us into a relationship based on equals. And it's a relationship based on wholeness. The idea of service starts with an understanding that the nature of life is sacred and that life is a holy mystery. When we're serving, we have a sense of knowing that we belong to the spirit of life and to that holy mystery. Of knowing that we're agents of service and that we're all sacred beings and that we're all connected. As Remen says, all suffering is like my suffering, and all joy is like my joy. Our impulse to serve emerges naturally and inevitably from this way of seeing. Now, as I've already talked about, this isn't to say that one person's experience is exactly like another person's experience, or that the details of my pain won't be exactly like another person's pain. And what brings me joy and happiness might not be identical to what sparks those feelings in another person. And we know this. What Remen is saying, and what many other spiritual teachers remind us, is that we all suffer and we all feel joy. On that level, we're all connected in one giant mosaic of humanity. And when we pare away all the particularities of our own lives and we set aside our own needs and our own insecurities, and we're simply there for another person in their pain or in their joy, then there are times when we enter a realm of deep connectedness, a realm that can feel truly sacred. It's what the Jewish theologian Martin Buber called the I-thou relationship, where there's me, there's you, and there's this sacred realm between us that we're in, and it's connecting us. And it might just be for a moment or two, but they're beautiful, sacred moments. I've had the privilege of experiencing many of these in my ministry, and they've been some of the most profound moments. Some of you may have noticed that each week when I introduce myself, I say that I serve this congregation. That word choice is very deliberate. As a minister with a calling affirmed by the UUA, I've made a sacred promise to serve this faith, including its institutions and its people. I set aside my own needs, and I do my best to discern what others' needs are and to minister to those needs through my service. Serving is a role of ministry. And ministry is something that all of us do, as we've talked about this year. as members of this congregation. We all do it. So for all of us, ministry at its best is what we do together as we serve the needs of the congregation. And we serve each other's needs as individuals, supporting each other and sharing in our joys and sorrows, our fears and frustrations, our celebrations and milestones as we go through life. And we serve the needs of our community as an institution through our volunteerism. Through our service, we build and strengthen the beloved community. I've been involved in quite a few different kinds of organizations over the years. And I've seen that when we volunteer, often we do so for a variety of different reasons. Not often, but once in a while, people's needs to help and fix can overshadow the focus on serving the well-being of the organization as a whole. These volunteers seem to depend on their role to feed their sense of worth and purpose, and even sometimes to feel a sense of power. And, we're all human, and we can all lose sight of our need to focus more on service and less on personal need. Mostly, we volunteer because of a genuine concern and a desire to benefit others. Our impulse to give of ourselves is motivated by a commitment to the community and a desire to tend to its well-being. When we're coming from our inner power and strength and a sense of wholeness, then we're serving. As Remen says, serving makes us aware of our wholeness and its power. The wholeness in us serves the wholeness in others. Fixing and helping are draining, but service is renewing. When we serve, our work will renew us. In helping, we may find a sense of satisfaction. In serving, we find a sense of gratitude." End quote. There's gratitude for the privilege of serving. As volunteers, we're grateful to be part of a group that's all contributing toward the whole, toward something good, toward building this community of spiritual seekers committed to furthering love and justice in the world. As we serve, we benefit too, not just from the feeling of gratitude. We grow in the awareness of our inherent wholeness. Wholeness is inherent. We're all whole, every one of us. We've always been whole and worthy of love. It's an essential thing, and it's the hits that we've taken in life that make us forget that. And so although we may feel broken at times or feel like we have broken places or broken parts, this doesn't in any way affect the fact that we retain this essential wholeness, which is always there and can never be taken away. It just needs to be uncovered and reclaimed. Service can help with this process, and that's all part of our spiritual growth. In serving, we find not a superficial sense of satisfaction which takes us into ourselves and temporarily smooths over those feelings of brokenness. Rescuing and fixing tend to do that. In serving, as we find gratitude, it takes us outward, connects us with each other, and leads us to even more gratitude and deeper appreciation for the wholeness of others and a stronger sense of our own wholeness. These awarenesses tend to come and go, and looking back on that incident with my friend Callie and her crutches, I guess that day I wasn't focused on gratitude. I didn't feel the gratitude of serving her in the way that she had needed most, just sitting with her and doing a few simple tasks. I wasn't feeling my wholeness, and so I wasn't able to appreciate her wholeness and her need for agency as she figured things out. And in my anxiety to be as helpful as possible, I drifted away from serving and right into fixing mode. which of course I now regret. I see now that my ego got in the way of being able to admit my limits. Her fall afterward led us to a misstep in our friendship. But, of course, missteps are part of life, right? Because we don't do life perfectly. As Richard Gilbert reminds us in our reading, life is always unfinished business. Yes, we are always works in progress. Postscript. When I asked Callie about including this incident in my sermon, she only vaguely remembered it even happening, so I think she forgave me. She didn't hold my mistake against me, and we're still very good friends. And I'm still one of her many friends, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But I hope that you'll take some time to consider how helping, fixing, and serving might play out in your own lives. You know, it can be a little challenging at times. But let's also consider the idea of service and how we might each best serve UUFN, this community, this beautiful mosaic of all of us, this community that we all love and care about so much. May it be so.